Hi everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to a brand new episode of Her STEM Story. If you're new to our show, we highly recommend checking out all our previous episodes. We have a wide variety of stories of women in STEM from around the world. So far, we've interviewed scientists, engineers, founders, non-profit professionals, and social media influencers, to name a few. They have openly discussed their struggles, their journeys, and all the things that they've learned on their way in their STEM journey. So do check them all out. Books are such an important part of shaping our society. I'm so glad to support the work of Erin Twomley and her book called Everyday Superheroes: Women in STEM Careers. Erin believes that kids need to see the diverse faces of STEM. Her book tackles the stereotypes in STEM by sharing the colorful illustrations and stories of 26 women of color currently in STEM careers. From an astronaut to a zoologist, she shares the career path and profile of all these wonderful women. Make sure you grab your own copy today by following the link in our episode notes. Congratulations to Erin for doing such a wonderful and important job. Today's episode is the story of a first-generation college graduate, neuroscientist, and a sci-com entrepreneur, Lauren. Listen on to this great conversation with this brilliant scientist.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
What is common between embroidery and neuroscience? It's actually our guest today, Lauren Hewitt. She is pursuing her PhD in neuroscience at University of Texas in Austin. She is a wonderfully gifted artist and has created her own science art business. In today's episode, we will talk about her journey of becoming the first college graduate in her family and her wonderful sci-com efforts through her art of embroidery, how her family played an important role in her STEM journey, and her favorite advice to get over imposter syndrome. At the end of the episode, we will also announce the giveaway details, so make sure you keep listening because Lauren has a wonderful giveaway for our audience. Okay, thank you so much, Lauren, for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for interviewing me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us all the way from Austin. I love Austin. I was there last year around this time and absolutely loved everything about it. So kind of a little jealous that you live there.
Oh, yeah. I feel so lucky. Like, it is such an incredible city. It's a very young city, so there's always something for you to do. Like, it's really hot right now, but it'll get a little better once the fall sets in.
Yeah, but who needs to worry about the weather when you have, like beer flowing around everywhere?
So true. Oh, my gosh. But the patios in Austin are, like, the best. Like, every place has a patio, so it's always so nice to sit on the patio and, like, hang out outside. Lots of community.
Food.
Incredible community. Yeah, and food. We have some really fantastic like chefs here. I'm a huge foodie, so I read all about the food scene all the time in Austin. And a lot of people like try to pilot restaurants here before they take them to like New York or LA, just to kind of test out the market and see how it is. And so it's been super cool, like kind of looking for pop-ups. Like a lot of places will do like food pop-ups to try out like sample menus and stuff. And that's like one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Austin is one of the best cities I've ever been to. So much fun, such a great vibe, and I love your Instagram. That's how we got connected. I love all the pictures you share and all the cool things you do, and I'm really jealous. So I'll say it out loud.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I can share that stuff because I feel like it's really important to like show people like all the cool stuff that I can do still, even while being a PhD student. Like, I definitely still have like a pretty like fun life where, like I said, I really explore a lot of food options, explore a lot of breweries and things like that. And so it's been like the most amazing place to be like in my mid-20s. Like I couldn't have picked a better place, I think.
So currently you're studying PhD. Tell us a little bit about that. What is your research about and where is it headed?
Yeah, so I have a really interesting like story of how I kind of got into research, and that's kind of what led me to my research question now. where I started out as a behaviorist in undergrad, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more later.
Yeah.
But started out as a behaviorist in undergrad where I was studying a model of menopause and doing a lot of hormone therapy research, and that was really awesome, but very centered around behavior. And so when I graduated from my undergrad, I was pretty sure I wanted to pursue a PhD, but wanted to make absolutely sure that it was the lifestyle that I was ready for. And so I took 2 years to be a lab technician at my undergrad institution, where I actually did developmental neuroscience, and it was more like genetics and microbiology based. So not quite as much behavior. I actually went in and like built their behavioral core like for the lab, which was really fantastic, and like definitely gave me a lot more confidence than I had had before, setting something up completely on your own. And after that experience, I kind of had this unique position where I was a pretty good behaviorist. I had a pretty good understanding of genetics and signaling cascades, but what I really wanted to know was, how does the activity of brain cells impact those things like behavior and different proteins, and how does genetics play into that? And so I applied to UT for my PhD program because we have a very strong physiology department where a lot of people are studying the activity of single cells, even down to ion channels, and all the way up to systems neuroscience, where they're recording from entire brain regions and trying to understand how network activity plays a role in things like behavior. And so I currently work in Dan Johnston and Darren Brager's lab, where we study a model of Fragile X syndrome, which is the leading monogenetic cause of autism. So it's a really fantastic model because we know exactly what's broken genetically. So this played on my strength of understanding genetics. We also really understand a lot about what the behavior looks like. So it's been really awesome for me to also like understand like how that works. But where I'm really learning and really branching out into the field is understanding how, the genetics are broken, but what does that mean for what the neurons are actually doing in certain brain areas? And so we focus on the hippocampus, brain area really important for learning and memory. And I study a specific class of brain cell called an inhibitory interneuron. And these neurons only make up about like 20% of the total cells in your brain. So there aren't a lot of them, but they're super, super important. One of the main things they play a role in is epilepsy. So a lot of epilepsy disorders have dysfunction in interneurons because they essentially tell the activity when to go and when to stop. And so if you have something like seizures, you have runaway activity. And so the interneurons aren't telling the brain like, oh, like we need to slow down, we need to stop. Instead, it kind of just runs away and it escalates to a point where the brain can't really rein it in. And so I'm trying to figure out how these interneurons in the hippocampus play a role in this model of Fragile X syndrome. And it's been super fantastic. I work on the single cell level. So I'm recording from individual neurons and kind of looking at their properties and seeing how are they different in Fragile X versus a control, as well as how could that potentially play into manipulating the network of the hippocampus and therefore, affecting the behavior down the line. So that's like what I want to do in the future. My big thing is I want to bring all the things together that I've kind of worked on and take a really focused systems level approach where we can understand, okay, this is what the neurons are doing. This means that's what the network's doing. And this is what behavior looks like when the network's behaving this way. So I have a long way to go, but I definitely hope that I get there someday.
So just to refresh everyone's high school biology, can you tell us how many neurons do we have?
So we have quite a few neurons. I believe the number is around 5 billion total. And so I'm doing this like super cool project about neurons right now, actually, because I think a lot of people have this assumption of what they look like, but they're like
different, tons
of different kinds,
so,
right?
Isn't that interesting? Because people have a perception of how scientists should look like, and they look so different.
I know, no, it's so true. And so I was gonna say that like the highest number of like single type of neuron are going to be cerebellar granule cells. And that's like not a cell that people typically think about, like, oh, what does that look like? But they're these like super cute cells that like have these little claws that come off of their processes, and that's how they actually talk to other cells. But it's been, super cool, like showing diversity in more ways than just in neurons too, also in like science and art and like all those kinds of things.
So, and that could be your TED Talk.
I hope. I don't know. I would love to do a TED Talk someday. I saw Science Sam's TED Talk, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like maybe someday. Like,
Yeah, no, sure. And then actually Melissa Christina Marquez, her talk, her TEDx talk is pretty similar in terms of she talks about diversity in sharks because that's what she studies,
yeah,
but then kind of bringing it back to the diversity in science and how the parallel is, drawn. But yeah, you should think about
oh,
writing one.
so cool. That'd be super fun. I would totally love to do something like that.
Yeah, so that's super cool. So tell us a little bit. I know your story is way more than neurons because that's just so another aspect of your story is that you're a first generation college graduate.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
which might be a little bit of a shock to a lot of people who don't live in the US because everyone abroad thinks, oh my God, the US is the best country ever. Everyone went to school. There's a thing in
Yeah.
India where people think if you can speak English, you suddenly are
Mhm.
educated, which is so weird
Yeah.
to me. But yeah, it's hard for people to kind of imagine, at least where I come from, that there is a huge population of first generation graduates in the US, which is
Mhm.
one of the world's best countries, and education is so systemically kept away from
That's true.
a whole part of society. It's just underprivileged, or just if you don't have the resources. So tell us a little bit about what that was like. So when did you decide that I'm going to break this and I'm going to
Yeah.
get into college?
Oh yeah. I mean, I love talking about this because I desperately wish that, things like, like this podcast existed when I was going through this transition, because I really didn't know very many people that went into PhD programs. Like I didn't even know you could get a PhD until like probably my sophomore year of college.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. And so both of my parents are only high school educated, and they're incredibly hardworking and did everything they could to really provide for me. And their huge thing for me was for me to go to college. So they definitely were the biggest influence, and like, you need to go and get your education. Like we always wish we could, but like other circumstances really kept them from it. And so we all saved for a really long time. Like when I worked in high school, I continued to work in college part time for me to be able to go somewhere and like put that towards tuition. I had this idea from when I was very young, actually, like, okay, like I'm going to go to college. Grad school wasn't really in the picture yet, but I definitely am very fortunate to where I had a fantastic support system that was willing to support me for going to school. Needless to say, it still was an incredibly difficult experience because when you think about it, I really didn't know how to ask for help because I really didn't know what was out there. So when it came time to like apply for colleges, like I didn't really know how to do that process. I didn't really seek out help to do that process because I didn't know that's something you could do, And so I did a lot of that myself in tandem with like the financial aid stuff. I did all of that myself. So I was really kind of driving like the whole time, through this crazy experience where, you're transitioning into starting to become a young adult. And I was kind of disappointed when I first got into a school. Like I went to Arizona State University, and that was not my first choice of school, but it came down, of course, to like a financial situation where I would need to be actively contributing to tuition. And it ended up being the best thing ever for me. So I love ASU, and I am so thankful for the experience that I got there. And I got that experience because I was able to essentially go to school without having to pay student loans because of my parents had saved. And that's been paramount in me. Yeah, being able to go to grad school is huge. The financial burden of student loans is incredible. And I have so much respect for people who really push themselves to, get their education and do what they need to do and still deal with so many of the incredible financial hardships. And I feel incredibly fortunate and privileged to say that, I did college with a huge savings plan and able to like kind of make it through. But the other crazy thing is that like I also didn't know how anything worked. Like classes and like any type of social structure of a university, research. I actually got into research as a freshman because my high school psychology teacher told me, because I wanted to be a doctor originally, actually, I knew I wanted to go into the brain. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school maybe for psychiatry or neurology. Mm-hmm. And so my high school psychology professor was like, okay, like if you want to do that, like you need to get into research like super early. And me being like, go get it, was like freshman orientation. Like I went up to the dean and was like, hey, like I want to do research, which now that I think about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But I just like, I had no idea what a structure of a university was. I didn't know the dean was like a super big deal, so I had no fear, which kind of played out in my favor because he hooked me up with a really fantastic lab. And that's when I really realized in the lab was, oh my gosh, like I could do this for the rest of my life, like work in a research lab. Like it was a huge eye-opening moment. And I like vividly remember like talking to a grad student just being like, what? Like this is crazy. So after that point, like pretty much in my sophomore year, I set my sights on like, I think that getting a PhD is what I want to do. And after that, I just started talking to everyone. And that's probably like the biggest piece of advice I can give to any first generation college student is don't be afraid to ask anyone anything for advice about applications, about prerequisites, anything. Like there's so many people, especially now with social media being so big, that are here to help and here, have resources. I've written for blogs, written articles, and that really helped me when I was transitioning into applying for grad school. Because then again, I was at this impasse where I had no idea what to do. And your priorities kind of are different sometimes. I had always been super focused on financial management because that's how a lot of my life had been. And so applying for graduate school is really expensive, like really expensive. And I didn't really find that out until like a little too late. There are a lot of things that I wish I would have known, like some schools will do waivers for fees if you qualify for them. And there are also programs that you can use through your university to get, discounts on the GRE or discounts on prep courses for the GRE. And so I think like those resources are huge. And I wish that more people would talk about them because especially when you're a first generation student, you just have no idea what questions to ask. Don't really know what you're doing. So, but it's made me a very like go-getter personality, like to have to go through all those things myself. Like now I'm just completely unafraid of asking people for help and for questions. And I think that's really has helped me become not only like a fantastic research scientist, but also grow more as an artist and just a human in general.
Yeah, no, I love that you have no student loans. Congratulations.
I know, right? I really do feel like that.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of burden in the US. Ask people, why didn't you go to school for engineering? And it's like, we couldn't afford it. And it's what? Like in India, it's like you don't get selected. That's why you didn't go. But here it's, very, very sad. And I'm so glad that, you were able to do this with the help of your parents and you thought long term and you know, I'm sure there was a lot of budgeting, a lot of saving money.
Oh man. Yeah.
Doing all that. And that has kind of led you to find a side hustle, right?
Yeah, I think it honestly, a little bit did. But you're always kind of looking for ways to make ends meet, and I definitely fell into this artist world. And at first, I was doing it for fun, and people kind of picked up on it and started asking me for embroidery pieces, and I was like, oh man, this is a fantastic opportunity. Like I definitely should take advantage of it. I started on my personal Instagram first because I really picked it up as just a hobby. And Instagram is actually where I saw my first like embroidery artists, and they sell patterns, on Etsy and stuff that are pretty inexpensive, and the supplies are really inexpensive. So even more of a win. And so I bought a few patterns and was like, I'm just going to try this. I was going through my qualifying exam at the time, which essentially is like when you are reviewed for whether or not you're qualified to stay in your PhD program. And so it's incredibly stressful. It happened at the end of my second year. So in 2018, in the spring, and I was just beside myself because, I worked so hard to get here. It's a ton of pressure. And I started having like stress headaches and just like really bad things like started happening to my mental health because it was just a really incredibly hard period of time for me because I was just studying all the time, constantly battling imposter syndrome. And so I picked up embroidery just to do something with my hands before bed that wasn't being on my phone or on a screen because I was just reading all the time and studying all the time. So I was always on my computer, always on my phone, and so I just wanted something that was for me and was something that was tactile, that I could touch and like see, form and happen. And I think one of the best parts about it is that embroidery is so satisfying because you can sit down and create a piece, in like an hour or so, but you get to see that progress and then you hold a finished product in your hand. And that's been really important for me as a scientist because we're in it for the long game, right? Like you're working on a project sometimes for tens of years and not really seeing exactly where you're going. And so you have to really hold on to this, delayed satisfaction. And embroidery has really given me a release for that where, I can have satisfaction a lot faster and be really proud of something that I've made. And so that's kind of why I started, was really to help with my mental health and to give me something that was, my own. And I started my own embroidery Instagram because I was like, friends were like, Lauren, like you should totally do this. Like your work is really good. I was like, all right, fine. So I sat down with my roommate and she helped me make my profile, and that's history. So that's how I started.
Yeah, and then you got being on a conference. I remember this with Christine, right?
Yeah, so inspirational. She's
I
so
know.
awesome, and she's fantastic. And it was so awesome because she was the first like Instagram person that I met like in real life.
Yeah.
From my embroidery stuff, and she had just been so supportive from the start. And I connected with her from a post that I had about a neuron piece I did, and I just asked her to do an art trade with me. Like this is one of those things, like talking to the dean, like I just can't believe that I did it, right? It was like very just uninhibited, like maybe we should do an art trade. And here's me with like 100 followers, like you probably don't know me, but let's connect. And she was all about it. And so we did this art trade and we continued talking, and she's been so helpful in helping me curate what I want and just really being true to myself with this process of doing science art. And I thank that art trade for like, going to SFN, the conference, and like being able to show my work to, a lot of people, because she really gave me the confidence that, the work that I'm doing is really good and people would like to see it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And Christine, in true sense, like that's advocacy. Like I think she is just phenomenal. I told her, I said, Christine, you should start calling yourself an angel investor, because that's literally what you do. You're investing people. You're an angel for a lot of us, which is very hard to find. Christine shares opportunities. Now she's doing such a great job with the STEM Squad.
Oh my gosh,
allowing people. That's going to be huge. I think that's just something
totally.
We all need.
It's
going to be
I'm
wonderful.
so happy I get to be a part of that too, because it's just so fantastic. And I feel like she really opened my eyes to using art as a way to be an advocate. And I contributed art to the zine that she did with 2 Photon for the sexual harassment crisis in STEM fields.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought about using art as a tool like that before. And now like an active thing that I'm trying to do is find, local charities and like ways that I also can use art to amplify by like auctioning off pieces and, having giveaways with other accounts that I am really passionate about and things like that. So it's been fantastic to have her as a role model.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I never would have really thought about using art as such a powerful tool, but it really is.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes maybe I should change the name of the show to Christine Liu. I'm kidding, but she's amazing. But back to your story.
Yes.
Story. Your work is so incredible and so inspiring. And
thank you.
Mentioned that your biggest achievement is to the fact that you got a graduate degree, that you finally, when you graduated.
Yeah.
That was really a heartfelt moment
for
your family. So, tell us a little bit about that. What does your family think of all the things you're doing? I'm sure it makes them really proud and hopeful for the future. But share that moment with our listeners too.
My parents, also like me for so long, really wanted the best for me, wanted me to go to college. And it was so surreal. Like that day of graduation, it just is one of the happiest days of my life. It's so surreal that I could show them that all of their hard work, to help me get this degree and all the support they had provided me, in long phone conversations at night of me freaking out, like thinking that I wasn't going to be able to do it, or, bad grades and feeling like I'd have to retake classes. And I wanted to show them that, it was all worth it and that, I could do it. And I did. And it just, my parents both were, very emotional about it. I was super emotional about it. They got to see, their firstborn kid go up on stage and receive a university degree. And that's something that they had always wanted. And it was just really special. And I also have 2 siblings. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister who I'm 6 and 7 years apart from respectively. And so it was so awesome for them to see that too. Just that all of the things that I just trial and errored, like desperately, trying to understand the college system and like make it through to get my degree, like I can now be a huge resource for them, and they see my success as well. And so it was just really powerful to know that I put in the work and I, got what I deserved, and it was fantastic. And they're super pumped about the PhD. I remember when I told them I was going to take 2 years off and they just couldn't believe it. They were like, you're never going to go back to school. Like, you're going to make enough money to where, you're not going to want to go back. And, and I tried to explain to them, like, no, like, I need to go back. Like, it's, it's in me. Like, I got to go back. Like, I know I'm going to go back. And they didn't believe me for a little while, but then I applied for graduate school and they're like, okay, she's going to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did those 2 years, worked. And when I got into UT Austin, my dad had me send him the offer letter because he was like, they're going to pay for everything. Like, it was beautiful. I cried because I knew he was just so proud of me and just couldn't believe that I was going on, to get a doctorate degree. His kid that's like the first college graduate in the family, like, is not only getting a college degree, but also going on for a doctorate. And then, and then I wouldn't have, debt from going into a PhD program because UT would pay for it. And my parents were just over the moon about it. And it's been fantastic sharing the experience with them, They are super supportive of me still. And I called my mom and dad many times during my qualifying exam preparation and multiple times, like, just throughout the year when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they've always really been there for me. And I cannot wait to defend my dissertation and have them be there and just see what I did, just like show them that all of the work that we've done together as a team has come to fruition for me to just aspire to my dreams, you know?
Yeah, I think it's such an underutilized resource. Parents, I think, kids don't realize that, they're there for you. They'll always be there for you. So, in India, your parents pay for all your schooling. It's just how it is. It's cheaper too. But you always grew up with that. And, even though you go through ups and downs, like, parents are really a constant. People live with parents. So, that's, just something in our culture. But when I met my husband, I asked him, who's your best friend? And he said, my parents. And I said, what? And he said, like, those are the only two people that I can call anytime of the day. They'll pick up my call, no matter where I am. They'll come help me. Like, those are the only two people I can trust. Like, they will always be there. And I think a lot of us just take them for granted. And I've started calling my mom every day. Every morning, like, she lives way far, but I was like, okay, I'm driving to work every morning. I'm going to call at the same time. And it's transformational. It helps your mental health a lot because those people are like real, like, they're, they gave birth to you. So, the older you get, the more you realize they're, how important they are. But it's so beautiful that you're doing all this, not just for your own dreams, but, keeping them in mind. It's something that we don't see all the time. And I hope that people can, get more and more closer to their parents and include them, because I think friends are overrated in terms of, people spend too much time with friends and very little time with parents. And it's important. Because everything, as you mentioned, like, really well, that hard work that you've put in, but also the hard work that they've put in to raise you and to give you the voice. Like,
and it wasn't easy. So
or to give you the voice, like, go talk to the dean, talk to anyone you want. I mean, that's just characteristics they build over time, and you must have watched them do it. And so you kind of copy, but it's just so nice.
Well, and I was not close with my parents, like, in high school, I think, like, most kids go through that phase where they're like, I'm trying to be independent. Your parents are like, but wait, no, like, I'm not ready. And I got so much closer to my parents when I went off to college, because it was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm floating in this vast abyss of, like, what do I do? And, like, they were such an anchor for me. That we kind of just, like, worked through it together of, like, oh man, like, try this, try that. And, like, they'd ask friends and I'd ask friends and we made it. But I will always honor, like, the sacrifices that they made to get me to be able to even have the ability to go get a PhD. I think that that's such a huge thing, and I am so thankful for it. So
Lauren's parents, if you're listening, you rock.
Hi mom, hi dad.
That's awesome. So, you also talked about imposter syndrome, and I am, curious to know how you kind of got over it. Maybe if there's tips that you can give to people who are struggling with it, because I think all of us are struggling with it, men, women. What is the one thing someone can do to kind of get over it, or to at least work with it?
The biggest thing that helped me was my voice deserves to be heard. Even if I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, even if I feel like I fudge a fact or something like that, like, or say something wrong, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm here to be a student. I'm learning. I'm going through a really difficult process. And ultimately, my voice will be heard later have my own lab someday, but why not start now? People should hear what I have to say, and it's valuable. A lot of people, I think, in PhD programs get kind of frozen up by the fact that everyone seems so smart, right? Everyone seems to have it all together, but you don't always know that other person's process or if they're not feeling the same way. And so how I approached it is being super open and talking about imposter syndrome and like when I'm feeling that way with a good support group, my friends. And then the other thing is just I have this mantra that's my voice deserves to be heard. It helped me a lot. And I kind of came up with that very recently. So last summer around this time, I went to Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and that's where the Marine Biological Laboratory is in Cape Cod. And it's this really fantastic place. It's been a laboratory for a very long time. And some of the top researchers go there during the summer to open labs and do work. And they're also open year round and do incredible like ocean work, like on the sea life that's living in the Atlantic and in the Cape. And it's this magical place. I applied to go to this course called Neural Systems and Behavior. And it's a course that my lab had history with. And so when I heard them talking about it, I was like, maybe I should apply for this just to try it out. And I did, and I ended up being selected to go, and they select 20 people every year who range from assistant professors all the way down to graduate students to embark on this 2-month journey where you're working with a bunch of different model systems, and it was life-changing. It was really fantastic. I mean, I learned so much, but the huge thing is that I had major imposter syndrome while I was there, and it's because it's like the smartest of the smart people are there now. So it's not just like I'm surrounded by smart people. It's like, oh, Nobel laureates are here and I can ask them questions. And finally, 2 weeks in, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm tired of feeling this way. Like, my questions are good questions. Like, I should be able to ask them. Like, I shouldn't let myself hinder myself by feeling like that. So that's kind of how I got to that mantra. It was just, surrounding myself with greatness and realizing that I could be a part of it too. There shouldn't be anything that was stopping me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love how you put that. And again, I think we question ourselves way more than people around us do. And we are in our way times. Like if we just got out of our own way, oh my God, we can do so.
Yeah. Well, and it's so isolating, right? And it's you can't isolate yourself. And I think that's a big thing too, is I had this cohort of 20 people where we all were feeling the same way for sure. And so we confided in each other right off the bat because you're working in the lab pretty long hours, 6 days a week in this course. And so you just start to trust your cohort really fast. You bond really fast and you just are very open. And that was super helpful just to see also the magnitude of these smart people also feel the same way I do. And so don't isolate yourself if you're feeling that way. Start talking to people and you'll find really quickly that, you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And so before we let you go, tell us your favorite book.
My favorite book? Oh my gosh. So my favorite book for a long time was Gone with the Wind because I read it young and I loved it, for a long time. But I have to say it has recently changed to the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. Okay. So it's this series. It has a really interesting story. It's a high fantasy series. So it's almost like reading a history book, but of a fantastical land kind of. But the author was a physicist and originally, and then he started writing these books, and they're kind of long, and there are 12 of them, but they're so beautiful and so intricate. It's so easy to get lost in them. They have really powerful, strong female characters in them. And I've always really loved fantasy books. And it's super cool because Robert Jordan passed away before he could finish the series, unfortunately. But he actually put in his will that he wanted this other fantasy author, Brandon Sanderson, to finish them for him. Wow. And so Brandon Sanderson came in and worked with Robert Jordan's wife, and they were able to finish the series to completion with all of his notes. So it's a really beautiful story of how, this person got their work out there even after they were gone.
That's wonderful.
But it's really easy to get lost in, and that's been super fantastic for me. And it's taken me years to read the books, which has also been really great. So I feel like I have a really intimate relationship with them.
Oh, that's wonderful. And again, thank you so much, Lauren, for taking the time and sharing such a wonderful story. It's so inspirational.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And we wish you all the best in everything that you do. So let's talk about our giveaway before you go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be so much fun.
So you're going to embroider a very special piece
Yes.
custom made for Her STEM Story listeners and followers.
Exactly.
So that people can win it. So everyone can go to our Instagram and Lauren's Instagram when the show comes out, and then just follow the instructions and check out the piece and support our work and support Lauren's work as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be fantastic. I'm super excited to be able to support this podcast.
Yes.
You know, Her STEM Story has been such a fantastic resource, not only for me, but I know for so many other people. And I am seriously honored to be able to contribute. So
yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. And again, thank you for taking the time, Lauren.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that was Lauren with her incredible STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Lauren and her amazing work. Lauren has also partnered with us to give away a free hoop that she designed just for us. So to enter a chance to win the hoop, make sure you follow us on Instagram, send us a DM by saying why you like our show, and rate and review on iTunes. If you send us a screenshot, you will enter the giveaway. And this hoop says stay curious, and you can see the picture on our Instagram stories as well. So make sure you follow us on Instagram, send us a DM saying why you like our show, rate and review on iTunes. Just 3 simple steps, and you can enter a chance to win this wonderful and specially designed hoop. So thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next week. Bye.